Let me know whenever you're ready. So for anybody watching right now, um, we haven't started the radio show yet, but a lot of people have been asking this question of why we have a lot of dead time in the beginning. And one of the reasons is we go live prior to the actual radio show and just giving the people a little bit of understanding of why that happens. And it's just to make sure that we have a good stream that hasn't been broken. So that being said, show's going to start in about a minute and a half. We got a good show geared up for us today. We're going to continue the conversation from the REO and foreclosure talk from last week, and we're going to have a couple other things that we're going to throw in there. Should be a good show. And just for anybody that is wondering, one of the biggest things that is an indicator of when the show actually starts is when you actually hear me give the promo for the Real Estate Plate radio show that we do every week. So that should give you a good indication of how we get started.
That ain't me.
Not yet, right? We started?
AM 1240 and W240 DFFM 95.9 Freeport, New York.
All right. So it looks like we're live. Good evening and welcome to the Real Estate Plate radio show. As always, I'm your host, Nick Sakalis, coming to you live from the WGBB studios here in America, New York. And as usual, somebody is ringing me during the time of the show. It always happens that way. Let's see how many times they call me until I get frustrated and I ended up just putting them live on the air and putting them on the spot. Because you know that's going to happen eventually. If somebody's going to, if they just keep calling me up and not wait for me to give them an answer, I'm just gonna send them, put them on the live radio.
You sure he's not just son calling again?
No, I recognize. I recognize my son's call. I recognize him.
Okay.
I think he learned his lesson last time. You know, you think he did it? If that's the case, then I'll put him on the air. I have no problem putting him on the air. You know, but again, it's a Monday. That's what happens. Monday, I can't. Monday's that day of the week that you really can't catch a break. You get the entire fallout from the weekend happening. You're getting everything gearing towards the week, and it's just an influx of a ton of calls that happen during the day. It's become the most. Of course, I get another call. I get another call. This one is coming from Raleigh, BMW. That's where I have my car. And they're going to probably call me up and say that there's something else wrong with my car. You know, that's every time I take my car for a service call or something kind of repair. All of a sudden, all these mysterious type of things happen. It never fails. It really does never fail. You know, but I'm gonna be tranquil. I'm gonna be calm. You know, I'm in a pretty good mood. You know, I'm not in a bad mood. I want to stay in a good mood. You know, how'd you do with the ice the other day? Put your microphone on. I can't hear you.
I didn't do so good.
That's the one thing that everybody. And I got these speakers. I got these. If everybody sees, I got these speakers. I could actually hear you now, and that's one of the things a lot of people have told me that they want to hear more of Trevor. They don't want to hear more. They want to hear more Trevor and less Nick.
But I kind of made it through in a tough way, but everything worked out okay, you know.
Oh man, hey, I'll tell you something. On Friday, as careful as I am usually, you know, I let my guard down at one point.
How you do that?
Right before I was about to go home,
Okay.
and I walk out of my office and I fly like I'm Bugs Bunny in the Looney Tunes cartoon, and did a basic double take,
Okay.
and I felt my age. You know, well, I don't know. I'm 44. I guess I'm not that old, but I don't feel like a 24-year-old. So when I fell down, I'll tell you something. My buttocks they hurt, and my hip and everything like that. I felt like a 90-year-old falling down with one of those commercials.
How do you do that? What happened?
You know what it is? By the time I got out, everything froze.
Oh, okay.
When I went in a couple hours earlier, things were clean. So by the time I got it was still raining, but it was ice rain. Everything froze. I wasn't paying attention because I was doing one of these, holding my phone on holding stuff. Wasn't paying attention, and I did one of these, and just flew. That was not fun.
No, I can imagine, man. I hope you didn't hurt yourself, though. You know.
I hurt my ego a little bit because
okay.
the first thing that it did was look around just in case somebody saw me.
You know that if they saw it, they would go laugh, right? You know that. Right?
Oh, I know that, and that. But if they would have initially laughed, but if they saw how long it took me to get up,
if I would have walked over and said you were okay, right?
Yeah, and then laughed after. You know, I'm not a light guy. I'm not a light guy. So like when I fall,
you're falling heavy. Right? I got you.
You know, there's an impact.
Right.
There's definitely an impact. So that's one of the common things I get from people. We can't hear Trevor. We want to hear Trevor.
Really?
We want to hear Trevor. We want to hear him when you're talking to Trevor. We can't hear what he's saying. That's for the YouTube people that are watching online.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So I wanted to give them the full Trevor experience by having these speakers in here.
Okay.
So hopefully anybody that is listening, there you go. You got your Trevor experience right now. The other thing I wanted to bring up, actually, how you ended me last week was actually really important because you got me into the whole process of
foreclosure.
Yeah, and the actual court step process, which is something that I wasn't planning on getting into last week.
Okay.
But you put me into another direction, which give me a reason to extend the topic to 2 shows right now, because that was something that I think a lot of people have interest in and finding out how it goes. So I'm going to recap that a little bit this week, and we'll get into the rest of the stuff I didn't dive into. And at the same time, I want to just give a couple other updates and tidbits for everybody listening. One of the things that we're going to have, probably within the next week or 2 weeks, we're probably going to have either a guest call-in or in person. We'll see how it's going to work out, from somebody that works a lot with antennas on the roofs. If people aren't familiar with that, sometimes when you see these big flat antennas that are on the roofs or in its towers, where they're from mobile companies, those people that have them on their properties are actually getting paid for them. And there's a whole complicated process of how it works and the contracts and the leasing and all that kind of stuff. So the person that we're going to have on, he's an expert in that, and he actually his career is actually based on negotiating these type of leases. So I think it's going to be something that's really interesting for a lot of people. It's not something that's commonly talked about, and it's something that I think could add some value to some people. So
something I wanted to add, because I heard people talk about, a lot of real estate people selling people's houses for 2%. Is that a normal thing?
2% from which angle?
Well, I guess that's what the company going to make.
All right, now you're going to get me sidetracked right now, but this is a good topic that you're telling me. Okay, so let's think of it from this perspective. Commission rates are open. There's no fixed rate. Everybody charges their commission based on their value. Okay, so just like anything else in this world, you get what you pay for. So if you are paying discount rates, expect discount service. If you're paying discount rates, expect not to have the same type of money that's being advertised and being used for marketing to be applied, because it's just a logistics thing. There's money. As soon as a house gets listed or a property gets listed, there's amount of expense. It's not as if you just write a sign on a piece of loose leaf paper and put it on the window and say for sale. There's a process. Even that sign that you see that's in front, that's a sign company that's paid to come and install it, put it down. The sign that's being put in there, there's all expenses. That's the smallest of the expenses that you could think of.
Right.
So the way it usually works is if an agent is selling a property through a MLS service, which most people do, especially for homes, not so much for commercial properties, but especially for homes, you have a scenario where they're going to put it out there onto the MLS platform database where other brokers and agents are going to see it. Now, certain agents and brokers that are representing buyers are expecting a certain amount of percentage to be paid out to them. Now, like you said, 2%. If the agent is taking a total of 2% on the commission, how much is going to be given out to the other side?
That's what I want to know. That's what I'm asking. It didn't sound feasible to me.
It just doesn't. It doesn't tell. What are they going to offer? 0.25%?
Right. That's what
I'll tell you from a personal standpoint, I don't really like to talk about these things publicly because it's really every agent should negotiate their own stuff.
Right.
But I'll be quite honest with you. For me to list a property, I need to make 2 to 3% on my listing side.
Okay.
I'm a listing agent. That's my job.
Right.
I need to make it on that side. Now, in order to make it feasible, depending on the area I'm selling it on, and because every area is different, and also price points are different.
Right.
The higher up you go in the price points, your percentage starts to go, but there's also a significant amount more money. You're not necessarily going to get 6%, 7% on listings that are $20 million. It just doesn't work that way. You have to be a little bit pragmatic and realistic about these things. It'd be great. I would love that, but it's not really feasible. Unless there's other things that are attached to it. So for me I need to make X amount from my side, no matter what, in order to say it's worth my time, my team's time, the amount of money we're going to spend to market it, the gas, the phone time, all that stuff.
All that up, right?
Yeah, and at the same time, it's not like you sell it in a day. Sometimes it happens like that, not too often. But it's not as if you sell it in a day. Even if you do get a deal in a day, it doesn't end. You still have a process that you have to go through. So typically, your average sale from the day of acceptance to the day of contract and sale is about 3 months, more or less, 2 to 3 months. Unless it's a cash sale, you can maybe do it 1 month, 30 days less, possibly. But for the most part, you say 2 to 3 months, and that's if you listed it and you sold it right away. If you didn't, every day that passes costs you more money in marketing and advertising.
For real, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because we're paying advertising platforms to put it on there. One of the big things that I love to use is Google Ads. And it's basically one of these things that you basically advertise something through Google, and you're paying it in order to shoot out the advertisement to people that are looking for specific things. So in other words, if we're in Merrick, I would put keywords like in Merrick, New York, the zip code, house for sale in Merrick, et cetera, whatever the case. A whole bunch of keywords. So the people that are searching for that will actually get targeted, and they'll be sending in there, and they'll also track them and follow them and keep sending the advertisers. It's annoying, but that's what everybody uses. That costs me every time somebody. They don't even have to click on it. The sheer fact that it shows up in front of them, regardless if they click on it or not, it costs me. Now, it costs cents for each time, but you multiply that by multiple thousands and thousands of times every day, it adds up.
I understand.
So that's just one thing that we do. That's one thing that we do. We do a lot of different things. I mean, there's paper advertising, there's postcards that sent out, etc., etc. So every single day that passes, it costs us money.
So let me ask you a question. While you advertising, let's say you assign to an area or a certain house, what stop the other real estate people to trying to beat you to it? You advertise, but they see your advertisement and go there and make a deal with the homeowner or the.
Well, I wouldn't spend a dime in advertising unless I have an agreement or a sign with the owner.
Oh, okay.
It'd be foolish for you to do it. Sometimes you get people that do stuff like that, where they actually advertise stuff that they don't have any contractual obligation with the seller. Not a good idea, especially if there's no other binding ties or something like that. Like sometimes I'll do that on properties I manage, where I'm not really going to be marketing to sell them, but I need to get them out there to maybe get a rental done or something along that line.
Okay.
And like if an agent brings them in, no problem. They're gonna have to deal with me anyway. So it's not something that I'm concerned about on those ends. But in the majority of the time, you're not going to advertise and spend any kind of money whatsoever on a place unless you have a agreement with somebody. And if they tell you they are, not a good idea. Once in a blue moon, you'll get somebody to put up a sign on a place that's not listed properly. But that's not really helping you as a seller.
Right.
That's really helping them because they got their sign up there, and that's almost like telling everybody, keep away, this is my listing.
Oh, okay.
And it's advertising,
right,
even though there's no listing there. So there's a lot of different components to that. So be very wary of that case. So going back to your initial question of 2%, you know what? They could say anything they like, but the best question to ask is, what are you offering me for that 2%? Where's your motivation? On the listing agent side, the motivation obviously is sell it as fast as possible and go on to the next property to sell. But there's also additional motivation. If they are able to get a buyer to come in through them directly, they'll get paid the buyer's end as well. So there's another motivation in there as well, as far as them getting compensated more for it. And at the same time, they also have the motivation of being able to control the entire deal together. It's helpful. Now, if another agent comes in, they have a buyer representation, blah, 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 they're going to give them their portion, that's it. But you have to make it worth their while. You know, if you call me and tell me, Nick, I really want to see this house. It's listed right now, and you should go and take a look at it. Yeah, I want to get in there. And I look at it from the MLS platform, and I see nothing's being offered out, or half a point is being offered out. Then I'm going to have to turn to you and say, here's the case. I'm not getting compensated on this deal. Either you're going to have to go to them directly and be unrepresented, or you're going to have to pay me a fee to represent you. It's one or the other. A lot of times you get buyers that will say, well, I'm going to go directly to the agent and the seller and try to work it out myself. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work. But I'll tell you something, more times than less, you have situations where things are missed, especially for first-time buyers and stuff like that. I wouldn't screw around too much as far as not trying to get somebody to properly represent you, because there's so many things that could be missed. Now, if you're a veteran, you're savvy, you've done this a few times, you know what you're really doing, different story. You kind of work it out in a different way. But you still, because you don't know what today's trends are. You might have bought 10 houses 10 years ago, but today's trends are a little different.
Is it important for somebody to research a real estate broker or an agent before they get hooked up with them? Because I've heard stories of people,
absolutely,
you know.
Absolutely. It's funny you said that, because one of the segments that I'm actually going to start today going forward is something of things that really irritate me.
Okay.
So real estate things that really irritate me. So one of the things, and the topic today was to basically state when a agent is openly a part-timer or doing this as a hobby or doing this as a side hustle.
Okay.
That irritates the hell out of me. And I'll tell you why. One, I do this as a full-time profession, and I take it very, very seriously, just like a lot of other people do.
Right.
And I understand that everybody has to get started somehow, and you have to get some income somehow. Then you should team up or work under somebody else for a certain amount of time to get the experience to be able to venture out on your own, and not do it as a hobby or a side hustle and that kind of thing. So that's the one thing on what you just told me that I would really, really focus on.
Okay.
What is that person's experience? What do they fully comprehend making a sale of that nature? And will they be able to represent you in the right way?
That is the key word right there, right?
You know what I'm saying? Think about it like this. If you just look somebody up and they just got their license, literally just last month they got their license. I'm not saying that that person won't work as hard as possible. If you feel that you need to give that person a chance because you just have a good feeling about them and they're going to outwork everybody, that's a different thing. But at least you know that's the information in front of you, and that you're not being fooled or duped that this person has experience and the ability to be able to get it done. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars that are being passed along in these transactions. And even if it's like a rental.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying. Also, what I really would really rather to say this way is this, that when you do your research on a real estate or agent, right, it's almost going to a tax person to see if this person really know how to do taxes. Can he save you some money? The other one might save you $1. The other one save you $5. So
how qualified are they?
Right. So that's what I was.
And that's where you need to focus on, like the qualifications, along with the financial. Like if they're telling you I want 10%,
right,
you know that you're going to find it for somewhere cheaper, unless you're selling a $100,000 property. You know what I'm saying? Because you got scales too. You know, so there's all different scales. Whether you talk about a normal property in your own house, that kind of thing, you're going to definitely want to understand the person's qualifications. You want to understand what the person's strategy and how they're going to market your home is, how knowledgeable they are of your specific type of home and area. That's a big deal too.
Yes.
Because they could be the #1 broker in Alabama. Well, think of it like this. They could kick butts and take names in their area,
right,
but they're clueless.
That's my point.
Clueless. You take an agent that's all the way out east in Suffolk and has no experience whatsoever in the heart of Brooklyn.
Right.
You think they're going to pull it off?
That's what I'm talking about.
I'll tell you something. Right. There is a possibility of them pulling it off, but the odds are all the Brooklynites and the agents down there are going to eat them alive.
Okay. Because they know the area and they know the community better. Right?
It's quite possible.
Right.
Not saying 400. There's nothing for sure because this person might be a quick learner and be quick on their feet. They figure out the research and everything. They might do the job, but that's up to you to figure out if they have the ability to do that. You know, sometimes you might have a cousin or a family member or something like you feel bad to give them the opportunity to be able to do it for you. It ends up burning you at the end, but maybe because you gave them the chance, they became better and they'll be loyal to you. I'll tell you something. The people that I first started to do business with and gave me an opportunity, I am the most loyal to. I am so loyal to these people. I can't even tell you how grateful I am for them giving me the opportunity. Because I had nothing. Like at that point, I had no experience, whatever. I had my mouth. I had drive. I'm a worker. No matter what I do, I'm going to go in 100% or I'm not going to do it at all. All I needed was the opportunity. And some people gave me the opportunity. And I was always honest with them. You know, as far as what my experience and what my understanding of everything was. Thankfully, I had a little bit more of an experience level than your average people because before I started sales, I was heavily involved in management of properties. Right. So I had a good, well-rounded understanding of real estate to start with. And the other thing is, before I dive full with both feet in to sales, I was doing rentals.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I kind of went up the ladder.
Mhm.
I didn't go straight into sales, which there's nothing wrong with that, jumping straight into sales. But you're running against a much uphill battle as far as trying to get yourself one recognized and hired. It's I give a lot of credit to the people that jump right in there, and usually the people that jump right in there and go straight to sales are either people that are relentless as far as hitting the calls and knocking doors and that kind of stuff, or they have some people to help them get started. Like they have acquaintances, they have friends, they have people that are willing to give them the business to get them started. So again, it's not something that you expect going in, but if you have that, that's great. That would be great. So yeah, from that aspect, buyer beware, caveat emptor. You know that term?
No, sir. Never heard
That's the Roman Latin term.
Oh, really?
Buyer beware,
That
caveat emptor. Yeah, so you getting what you really are getting what you pay for. And if I was your brother or something like that, I'm doing it for free for you. Whatever the case is, that's a different story. Or I'm basically charging whatever it costs me in marketing. That's a different story.
I personally would recommend anybody to your firm because not only you express the importance of things that most people have to pay for or go out and buy a book, okay, but you give it for free on the radio, okay.
Well, I definitely appreciate that.
And you're also a very honest person. You can tell, the way you talk.
Sometimes to a fault.
Well, listen.
Sometimes to a fault because I'm very blunt
Right.
with the way I
that's
speak.
a good thing. That's a good thing.
Some people can't take that. Well,
People are too sensitive, man. You got to learn to appreciate people that will tell you the truth in the hard way, whatever it is. If you can't take construction criticism, you're not gonna make it because you're looking for everybody to tell you something that you want to hear and not what you don't want to hear, and that's not good.
yeah, that's the truth. But there is a huge segment of people, especially when they're selling their homes, and it's their home that they lived in for 50 years or whatever amount of years, and they have a certain sensitivity to that. Sometimes the way I come off might offend somebody or might discourage them as far as like, oh, this person might be a little too rough around the edges for me or a little tough, and that's fine. I see my flaws as far as I might be a little bit too tough with some people, and that's why I have a team that I have other people that work with me and that will coddle them in a different way. Still tell them exactly what needs to be done, but wrap it up in a nicer packaging instead of the way I do. That's why I thrive in the commercial business because it's all about the numbers. When it comes to selling commercial properties, leasing commercial properties, you can't. There's no way of sugarcoating things. This is what it is. These are the numbers. This is what you're making. This is what the income is. This is what the expenses are. Nice, easy. No, actually not easy, but nice and cleaner as far as terms are concerned. But I just try to do the best thing as far as being honest, straightforward with people, and educating them in the best possible way.
I remember, was it last year? Sometime I spoke to you about having like a course or something like that, online course for people that needed to know about real estate or to know the ins and outs, because people are spending their money and they want to. Because for me personally, I have to do research on things, whatever I'm going to do, okay, and I have to understand why am I doing this. Is it going to affect me or benefit for me? I don't want to just throw myself into something and then later on down the road I'm sorry about it. I don't work that way.
I actually remember talking to you about this,
Yeah.
and it's something that I have kicked around quite often.
Okay.
As far as an idea of going forward with it, the thing about doing something like that, there is a commitment involved.
Mm.
There's definitely a commitment involved in wanting to do it the right way,
Mhm.
and I don't want to go halfway in.
Okay.
Either if I'm going to do some type of course or
Mhm.
seminar or something along those lines, um, it's going to have to be all in, committed,
Mhm.
doing it the right way. And in order to do it the right way, it's probably not something that I could do something like on the radio where I'm coming on once a week and just giving
Right.
you
I
some
understand.
information.
Right.
It's probably something that's going to be structured with a pay system or something.
Mhm.
I don't think like that's the other thing. I see a lot of these we'll call them real estate gurus. They're charging thousands and thousands of dollars for advice.
Mhm.
I think that a lot of the information that they offer is valuable. I don't know if it's worth thousands and thousands of dollars to go in there. It could be something that could structure it a little bit more economically and in a way where it could be cost efficient for people and helpful to people simultaneously. So I have to really think it through. I have had a lot of people approach me about something like this, and it is something I'm kicking around. But I think what will maybe what I'll do is do a sign up, and once I get a certain amount of people that are interested in doing something like this, then I'll structure something to be able to work with them all
Well, you have the
simultaneously.
platform to put it out there, and not only that, and this is something that I always wanted to ask you because when I'm talking to you and listening to you, because I listen to you a lot when you're talking, you feel like I'm on the computer with it, but I'm listening. And writing a book, I know it's not an easy thing, but I'm saying you have that great potential. Because I've seen people really sit and talk with you, but I haven't met nobody that's knowledgeable as you are and that
But
care. You know what I'm
I
saying?
definitely appreciate
You
that.
know.
Book I will eventually write. I just haven't written a book yet because my story's not done.
Okay. Okay.
I think the time for me to write a book is when my story is over and I'm running I'm at the twilight of my career
Okay.
and I've basically done everything I could possibly do, seen everything I could possibly see, and just share that with the rest of the people. I think that would be the best way for me to approach it as far as giving uh, the public the full experience of what I've done. And
Get your wife to help you with the book. She can do the research for you, and then you could be
well,
co-write it together.
I can assure you, I can definitely assure you, my wife will not be helping me in any way whatsoever with 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 any kind of books or anything like that. She doesn't even listen to this show, so
You only get her called in one time, and
she's got no interest whatsoever in this. I could assure you. I could assure you.
all right, go ahead and do your work, man. I'll finish up what you got to do.
I appreciate you, Trevor, as always. All right, everybody. So you got to hear Trevor. This time, I believe it went through the YouTube feed and everybody could hear it. Everybody in the radio could always hear it. So I believe that you should be happy. He took over half my show. You know, I should, make him a co-host or something like that.
Oh, that's all right.
But I think we talked about stuff that I think a lot of people would have interest in.
Yeah, I enjoy talking with you and listening, so that's why I participate. That's all.
I
Joey Petrona used to do that. He used to make me almost like his co-host. People would call him and say, "Where's Trevor at?"
Well, what happened to Joey Patron?
I don't know.
I love that guy.
Me too. I gotta find out.
He was a funny guy. He had his wife call in all the time. He says about wives and stuff like that. I don't know what happened. He came with the big hair. He was like a throwback from the '80s. He was a great character.
I think she came in one night. She came to the station.
I think was she blonde or something like that? Yeah. I think I met her as well.
Yeah.
He was
Nice
good.
lady.
He was good for the channel too. Who's on after me now?
Just the guy that go party after you.
Oh, the same guy?
Yeah.
The guy that calls up at 7:00 and says, "I don't want to lose a second." That guy?
He don't really do that. He just say, "Don't forget I'm on."
Oh yeah. I wonder if he's listening to right now.
I don't know. I can't tell.
If he is, he could call in. I didn't give the phone number to anybody today. Should I give the phone number to everybody today? Why not?
I think you should.
Maybe somebody will call. Maybe somebody will call. 516-623-1240. Again, the number here is 1-516-623-1240. You could reach me here, and if I'm not in the middle of a rant or in the middle of a tirade of talking, and the light goes on that you're on there, I'll accept the call. If not, I'll have to return your call or pick it up after the show. Because now there's only 30. Now it's only 27 minutes left. And by the way, I'm having my Starbucks as always. I am losing faith that Starbucks will be a sponsor on the show. I don't know how I'm going to get them to do this, but I drink so much of this coffee. I have to find a way to get them to somehow endorse the show, or at least give me a lifetime of
I have
coffee.
a friend of mine that is a manager that over about 5 or 6 of the stores. He calls my radio program every Saturday at 1, and I'll speak to him.
Hey, anything you can do, I appreciate it. We got to get that Starbucks endorsement. They get that every single show. This thing is sitting right next to me. You could see the coffee in every video. What's that? Well, let's think about it right now. 2000 and 4 years.
That's right. So you always, there's not a day you don't come to the studio.
I always come with my coffee. And everybody that knows me, they see me with the coffee is attached to me.
Okay.
I go into Starbucks, it's like I'm Norm from Cheers. They know my drink, they have it ready for me. For better or for worse, that's the case. So that being said, let's jump into the rest of what we were talking about last week. So I was in the middle of going into the whole process of the courtyard stairs on the bank auctions. So when you're purchasing those homes through bank auctions, I went through the whole process last week where you basically get the list up front. Sometimes you have the ability to be able to go in and inspect the place, or sometimes you can only drive through the places, drive outside of the places. You do as much due diligence as you possibly can. You go that day of the court, auction day. And when you do that, you're bidding up against everybody else. And most primarily, you are bidding against the bank. The bank is your number one competitor in most cases because they have a loan that needs to be cleared and paid for. So they are bidding usually, I say this because every so often you have an anomaly. But we're talking about under the normal situations, they are bidding up to what is owed from them in order to make them whole, or whole in the best way. Now, if somebody outbids their number, in other words, if there's a $500,000 house and they have debt that's $520,000, which is over what the value of the place is, they're going to bid up to the debt load. Typically. Now, if there's somebody else that comes in there, outbids them, they're going to get it. In order to outbid them, you have to be already registered in there. You have to have a deposit check, usually for 10%, and it has to be a cash sale. These sales are not normally contingent to financing, and they're usually happening within 30 days. So sometimes you'll get people that will buy it initially with hard money, or they'll get a equity line or something like that just to secure it, buy it, and then they'll do a refinance or a conventional mortgage after that if they're planning on keeping it. So you have that scenario happening, and for the most part, you usually see the banks walking away with all these homes, the ones that especially that are near or past market value in debt load. Now, the ones that people have an opportunity of being able to bid against themselves and their peers and kind of knock out the bank is when the loan and the amount is less, or in some cases, a lot less than what the value of the property is. So you want to make sure that that's the case. The other thing you have to keep in mind and be very wary of this that you want to be able to find out if there's any severe issues with the property. Now, your typical type of mortgage lien is going to be wiped out due to the nature of the auction. But there are other items that could be sitting there, and you could have a severe problem, such as violations, fines, penalties. You could have other issues like other type of debt loads that are on there. When the bank buys it out, they basically settle all the debts that are on the property. That might not necessarily apply to you when you purchase it at an auction. You might be taking it on with all the problems attached to it. So, buyer beware, do your due diligence, do everything you need to do, and make sure that you are doing the right thing. I can't tell you how many people, and this happened so many times over the years, where people have been buying properties. They've been buying properties from auctions, thinking they got a killer deal. They don't really know how to pursue it. I'm talking about investors that are looking to buy them and rehab them or knock them down, rebuild them, and sell them in order to make a profit from them. Now, what happens is you have a lot of people that are really out of their league when it comes to a lot of these things. Either they overpay it or don't estimate what the actual cost and time needed in order to do the proper rehab or rebuild on the place. Perfect example of this was when we were doing the auctions over on the New York Rising homes. I don't know how many people remember that, but there was all those homes that were acquired by the state after Sandy hit. After Sandy hit Long Island, there was a lot of homes that were severely damaged and in disrepair all across the coast in the flood zones. Now, they gave a lot of people that were affected the option to sell their properties back to the state. And a lot of people took that option. So what ended up happening is they acquired a few hundred, actually, it might have been over 1,000 homes. Yeah, a few hundred definitely. I don't remember the exact numbers that it was. Actually, it might have been a couple thousand homes that they had acquired on the island all across, and they had did a auction type of platform where they liquidated them to the public with the intent and purpose of obligating the people that acquired them to rehab and rebuild them and get them up to FEMA standards by lifting them or rebuilding them by code. Now, a lot of people went in there looking at these properties and said, wow, this is a great situation. We're just going to go there and, in their minds, put the house on stilts and we're going to be okay. Not so simple, especially if you've never done that kind of work, and especially if you're new to the whole flipping business altogether. Because the one thing that they didn't estimate and understand is the same way they were looking to get all the work done, there was a whole bunch of other people that didn't sell through these auctions that still needed to get work done on their own homes to get rehab. So there was a high demand for people that were working on the coast for lifting houses and rebuilding them and bringing them to FEMA standards. So the labor costs went up, the materials went up, and there was a lot of different scenarios that delayed them and actually increased the cost. So that being said, you have scenarios where people went in there thinking they got a good deal. Sometimes they grossly overpaid. Grossly overpaid, because I was at every single one of those auctions. I was at every single auction observing. I was helping some of my clients make some purchases. I knew at those auctions there was people that grossly overpaid as they were bidding on it. And not only did they grossly overpay to start with, they end up going into the scenario without really knowing what they're doing, or maybe they did a couple of flips, a couple of builds prior on conventional type of homes, thinking they can apply the same methods and the same process towards the one they picked up in the Sandy auctions, New York Rising auctions, and they end up getting burnt in a big way. Big way. Now, for the most part, the people that knew what they were doing, they ended up walking away in a decent shape. But there were some people that got obliterated. They really did. It's a shame. It's a shame. And it comes down to due diligence. And it comes down to, a lot of times, sometimes it came down to greed. Because they thought they were going to get away with things. And they were not able to get away with things. Thinking and knowing are two different things. I don't like making decisions on a hunch. Yes, a hunch will help my decision. A hunch will get me to that decision. But making it primarily on a hunch or a guess, not a good thing. Definitely not a good thing. So you had those scenarios right there. So that being said, we have the auction process that goes through. Now, we're going to go and jump into the houses that the banks actually acquire and retain. How do they go on the market? So typically how they go on the market, they either go through their platforms, through their asset management companies that actually directly market them and put them out for sale, or they go to an outside third-party brokerage, such as myself, that market, list them, and sell them for them. Now, there's a process of how this happens. The process starts before, usually, they actually acquire the property. Normally, what happens to me is I get calls from asset managers. I got tongue tied. So normally what would happen is you have the asset managers, lenders, they approach me prior, in some cases months prior to them actually foreclosing a property, and they start asking questions about the area, market values. They will actually ask me to go and run and do drive-by BPOs. In some cases, if there is access, we will do interior BPOs. BPOs, by the way, are initials for broker price opinions, which are the gold standard of real estate agent broker evaluations. They're beyond what a CMA is considered, the comparable market analysis. They're a little bit deeper in there, and they're not as detailed as an appraisal, because we're not certified appraisers. Some of us are, but not all of us are. But it gives them a really good indication of what they are getting into, what the value of the asset is, and then they'll probably ask for an appraisal on top of it to happen, or simultaneously, and that kind of thing. So that's where it starts as far as the relationship between the agent and broker that are selling it. And once it's foreclosed on, what you might see is a scenario where you'll go through another assessment period. You'll usually, if you already have a relationship with the lender or the asset manager, your agreements and terms are already in place. You pretty much know how your compensation is going to work, and terms and length and that kind of thing, and they know how you operate, et cetera, et cetera. So the agent lists it, and usually you go through a bidding process where everything needs to be submitted during a certain time, and sometimes all the offers need to be opened up at the same time. It all depends on how the lender operates and how much the lender wants you to extend the process or to get it done. Because there's two different ways that they'll approach it. They're going to look at a 30-day quick sale value, and they're also going to look at a 60-day or longer valuation. And every day that passes, it obviously costs the bank more money. So they're going to make these assessments, and the quality and the strength of the offer with the terms is going to play a huge factor. So if you have somebody that's going in for a purchase on a, let's say it's a decent shaped, livable house that doesn't have any major defects in it and it doesn't have any C of O issues, a conventional buyer will typically take 2 to 3 months to complete the sale here in New York, where a cash buyer could get it done in 30 days or less. Now, if the differential between the two is not that great, even though the cash deal is a little less, the fact that it's a more secure deal and it is a quicker deal, the bank or asset manager might have the capacity and want to accept that just to get it done and get it off their books. But if the difference is significant, they might be willing to wait out the longer haul. So you have to take all those things into consideration. Now, a lot of people that are submitting offers on it, they don't really understand how it works. And I'll tell you something. Being on the listing side of it and working hand in hand with a lot of asset managers, when we turn around and we tell people we need all your financials to be submitted with the offer, and it needs to be submitted by this time, it means you need to submit it by this time, and you need to submit it with all the proper documentation and financials. If you are not able to, or if you choose not to, that's on you. Because a lot of times, this is all done through digital process. Sometimes we use the platforms like the Equator platform, the other type of platforms that are proprietary for certain asset managers, where everything has to be submitted through there, and it's recorded through there. Sometimes we use all the home path methods, and when we don't, I do everything through email. That way, I have a full documented log of all the offers as they come through, how they come through, and that way we don't lose anything and don't lose any track of anything that could be a viable situation for the asset manager. Now that being said, I can't tell you how many people can't follow directions. And this doesn't go only out to the consumer. You know, when it's a consumer, I'll help guide them a little bit more because they really don't know the process and they really need to understand it. But this goes out to a lot of agents and professionals as well. It's kind of ridiculous. You tell them the exact instruction, you have them written down in your broker remarks, and they still can't follow directions. It's crazy. Why? Why can't you follow directions? Why? Because either you refuse to, or you think you're above the process. There's a third option, confidence, but I'm going to be kind and not use that option. But that's basically what happens. And the other thing I want to make sure that people understand is when we say we need your best and finals, because not in all cases does the asset manager or a bank want you to go for best and finals from everybody. They might say everybody submits their offer, they got one shot to get their offer in, that's their best and final. In other cases, they might give me the opportunity to go back to every single offer that came through and give them all the same blanket response by saying, due to the bidding process and the accelerated demand for the property, we are giving everybody one last opportunity to give us their best and final offers. Well, when we do that, that means you need to give us your best and final. Not hold back another $20,000, $30,000, $10,000, $5,000, $2,000, whatever it is that you're holding back, in hopes that even if you don't get it, we'll go back to you and try to get you to the case. You know how many times people have lost deals and bids over $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, and then they call me back yelling and saying, "Well, if I knew it was going to be only $1,000, I would have bid it up, or $5,000, or $10,000, whatever the case is. I would have matched it and beat it out." Well, you had the opportunity to give me your best and final. What does that mean? Because here's the thing. This is what they don't understand. Unlike when you're dealing with a seller situation where it's a direct seller, unlike a situation like that where you're dealing with a direct seller, you have a situation where they need to get this done sooner than later. Because every single minute, every single day that they're holding onto that asset is costing them money. Now, a seller might be still living in the house, and they might be willing to wait out a few more days, a few more weeks, in order to weed out and not leave any money on the table. And that couple $1,000, $5,000, $1,000, $10,000, whatever the difference is, might make a bigger difference to them than it would to the actual bank that's holding the asset. In a lot of cases, it does. Because they need every single dollar they can from that sale in order to purchase the next place. It's a domino effect. It's that kind of thing. So everybody needs to understand that it's not that the people running these REOs are being tough on purpose. It's just it has to get done. It has to get done. Now there's some people that are notorious in our industry in this area that sell a lot of REOs and foreclosures that are not really that on the up and up. I'm not calling any names. I don't want to get sued, and I don't want to have anybody give me any headaches. But there are people out there that, they're not. It's very blatant that they're not doing the right thing, but it is what it is. But for the most part, the people that are making this sale, they're doing everything by the book because they want to keep those relationships going with these banks. It's a big part of a lot of people's businesses. At one point, I was doing so much business, whether it was through short sales and REOs and foreclosures, after the fallout of 2008, between 2009 and 2000, I want to say 12. We were like really diving deep into it. We really were. And that was a big part of my business. If it wasn't for that business that I was getting during that time, I probably wouldn't have sustained. But I did sustain. And not only did I get through that time, but I actually thrived during that time. And it actually made me a more well-rounded real estate professional. It gave me insight and understanding of how to operate on different levels. So it's a really important thing for people to understand. But I think on that note, I think I basically covered all the topics on everything that you could possibly think of as far as the foreclosure process between last week and this week. Now, I didn't get like really super detailed into it because obviously, as I said before, this is only a 1 hour show every week, and I could literally take an hour on every single little detail. But I'm hoping that through this conversation and through the show and last week's show, it gives you a better insight and understanding of how it works. A summarized version of how it works is going to make you the guru and the ultimate foreclosure buyer out there? No. But at least gives you an understanding of how to get started. It really does. And then what I will tell you something else that might not be a bad idea. I would actually, if you had serious interest in purchasing these kind of properties or getting involved in these kind of properties, I would go to somebody that you see that sells distressed properties on a consistent basis, whether they're a broker or an agent, and develop a relationship with them and try to work with each other into finding these properties. Help them educate. They'll ask them to help educate you in the best way. Now, will they tell you all their tricks and everything? Probably not, because if they do, then you wouldn't need them. But you can get a lot from them in order to give you a better foundation. And there's a lot of information out there. You could go on the Google, that platform, that big cloudy platform all over the world, that will give you a ton of information. And that's the one thing that everybody has today that when I first started, didn't really exist that much. You know, in the mid 90s, when I first was of age, yes, there was an internet. We did have AOL. We had You Got Mail. We had a Prodigy, dial-up networks. You know, remember the screeching, that whole thing? We had that, but there was not a lot of info out there. There was, but it was not easily obtainable. It was not as user-friendly as it is today. There was just so much more that has come out since that day. So, since that time, I don't think information has ever been as easy to obtain as it is today. And I'm sure that in 10 years from now, it'll be even easier to obtain. So take advantage of it. Same way you got a guy like me sitting on the radio and just giving you some info that might be helpful to you and guide you and put you in the best position. There's all kinds of stuff going on. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube. Take advantage. Use it. On that note, I am going to look at that. I'm finishing right on time. I'm going to say thank you all for joining me. Have a great night. Have a great week. And I will be with you. Are we on next week? Is next week? Valentine's week? No, not Valentine's week. Is next week winter break? No, it's the following week, I think. Yeah, we're going to be on next week, just like every week. Mondays, 6 to 7 on the Real Estate Plate. And until then, make lots of money in real estate. Thanks for joining me. Have a great night.